Yeah.
I encountered this guy a couple of months ago when like lots of big conversations were happening about Ukraine. He just popped in and was calling out bullshit as he saw it, and he
Yeah.
seemed to have receipts and he seemed to know what he was talking about. And
Agreed.
and and so he would call out like Crystal and Sagar on breaking points in a way that I was kind of like, they don't know what they're talking about, do they? I would always have that thought every time I'd hear them. And then he would say why they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
And everything he said just made sense. I was like, "Oh, this is what I needed to hear." So anyway, I've been following him since then. He has a lot of takes on a lot of things. He's like a drone expert at some level. Let's go to his webpage. Let's check out what he's about. I want to like read a little bit from his bio. You know what's so interesting about this guy though? Is my opinion of him just kind of went and like pulled back just a little bit just a couple of
Uh-huh.
days ago when
Oh.
on stream he randomly said that he works for Newsmax. And I
Uh,
was kind of like, he's like an analyst for Newsmax. And he's like, I gather that he's not a liberal. Obviously, totally fine with that. But like, you
yeah,
know,
same.
like Newsmax, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like, you're lending your credibility to that organization. Really, like at some level, the organizations you put your name on, that reflects back on you. So like I've not like actually listened to Newsmax, but I see them crop up all like online and on
Yeah.
Twitter.
It's
Everything
a
I've ever seen them promote is always just kind of like legit fake news. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
it's like a
uh,
known propaganda dissemination vehicle.
yeah.
I mean, not that everything isn't now. Is it just me or is this guy the "I'm just a chill guy" meme?
Oh, true, dude. Yeah.
Somebody needs to do an overlay with that picture, dude, of the "I'm just a chill guy" meme.
So, Ryan McBeth is an intelligence analyst, software architect, security guy, and YouTube content creator of military intelligence and disinformation topics. And yeah, it's just been the last couple of months that his YouTube channel has kind of blown up, and I
Hmm,
appreciate about this because he genuinely has a knack for I think having a fairly unique lane on YouTube, and that he does this kind of like very, very goofy. Like he almost looks like a wackadoo conspiracy theorist, the way he presents himself, like holding a cigar. Like you're ready, like at any moment, for him to talk about like the Flat Earth Society or something like this,
right.
just like the way he presents himself. But then, like
Yeah.
he just is very straightforward, a nerd about the military, and he gets it right. But like he also has like he's a fiction writer. Like he has this new novel that just dropped. Everything about this guy I kind of like, and I tweeted about this yesterday, and he liked my tweet actually. Like so, got a little
Oh,
interaction from him. But I
nice.
tweeted that this is an underrated piece of merch right here. Live,
Live,
laugh,
laugh,
launch.
launch.
The illustration is pretty silly, but
Sick.
man, that's
That's
hilarious.
sick.
Sorry, that's so
I
funny.
love that. A real
And he,
renaissance man.
so from what you've consumed from him, I want to talk about his, I think maybe most controversial take, which is that he thinks that the military industrial complex does not exist. I want to get into that in a sec. But yeah,
Sure.
from having just like jumped into this guy's world a little bit the last day or two, what's your impression and what do you think of him?
Oh, Pete, I the only thing that put me off about him was his general affect of
Mhm.
like knowledgeableness. I find that people who have that affect tend to be wrong more than people who have at least a modicum of like humble curiosity embedded in what they're talking about. It's just a
Mhm.
vibe check for me. But I thought almost everything he said was eminently reasonable, and I think that he is one of those people that has become master of multiple worlds and is able now to kind of syncretize certain segments of his knowledge to produce novel insights. And I
Mhm.
think that anytime someone achieves that level of not just knowledge but synthesis and the ability to produce meaningful informational outcomes from that synthesis, like, you got my heart. You know what I mean? Like, just to climb that mountain alone is a huge undertaking. And, like, some of his ideas about informational systems being weapons systems, I think are awesome and kind of revolutionary. Um, I think that his insights as a military platoon sergeant are probably incredibly valuable. Yeah, I haven't consumed anything that I'd find patently would put me off in any way. In fact, it'll probably become at least partially a part of my media diet because just in listening for maybe 30 minutes or an hour or so, I a bunch of things. Why I stopped the podcast and was like, "Babe, you ever think about this? Like this guy's saying this. You ever think
Oh, that's
like
great.
I
That's
don't know
great.
if you have that same relationship with your lady, but like I'll be like, "Hold, hey, have you ever thought about the logistical?" You know what I mean? Like, have you ever thought about military supremacy as a function of logistical capability, babe?
Oh, that's so funny. That's so good.
Back to the kind of discussion at hand with McBeth and his idea that we do not have a military industrial complex. I think there's a little bit of a
Oh, hey, before you comment, I wanna, like, present the full view, and then I
okay,
wanna
yeah,
pick
please
at
do.
it.
I
I have
listened
some
to a
comments
little
too,
bit of it.
and I got some, questions for Mr. McBeth about his perspective, but let's lay it out. I wanna
As
start
do
with
I.
his yeah, so I'm not sure what you consumed about this. I haven't consumed all of his content on this argument, but, like, I wanna give the 2-second snippet, and then I wanna let him elaborate just a little bit on it, and maybe we'll bounce to a couple of clips. But here is his, like, 2 seconds. This is why he has this argument, guys, that every time he does it on any interview, it just stops the interviewer dead in the tracks, and it's, like, so funny to see.
There's no such thing as military industrial complex. Really? People go, what? No, absolutely not. I love this. I love this.
But here is a 2-second overview making his argument.
Military industrial complex doesn't exist. We used to have a military industrial complex. It used to be tech companies were military companies. And by 1993, when the Cold War was kind of winding down, there was this, they call it the Last Supper. There was this dinner at the Pentagon, 15 defense contractors at the Pentagon for dinner. And they showed them a chart. And they said, listen, the Cold War is over. We cannot afford to keep all you guys in business. You guys need to either consolidate or die. And essentially, after 1993, you see defense spending go. It used to be defense spending was like 9.6% of our GDP back in the 1960s, which is when Eisenhower said military industrial complex. Yeah, he wasn't wrong then. But today, there's no military industrial complex. Do you have any stock in Lockheed Martin? No. Yeah, why? They're the military industrial complex. They should be doing great. You don't own any stock. Do you have stock in Apple? Yeah. Yeah. If the military industrial complex is tied in with Congress and Congress just shoves money into the military industrial complex, why isn't everybody invested in these defense contractors? Do you know anybody who works for a defense contractor?
Oh man, can I? May I?
Yes, yes. I'm
Go
gonna
first.
play his like more extended clip in a second to get some of those details. Because even if he's wrong or whatever in his argument, which I think there's ways in which he certainly is, but like I've never heard a lot of this before. I've never
Oh,
thought about that before. That like the military industrial complex, if it was as powerful as Bernie Sanders and everybody on the left says it is, why is it a shitty like why are these companies shitty companies? And like I never thought about that before. And I love that.
because
Go.
because the defense industry is not a single-sided industry. It is not just an offensive industry. In fact, over the last 20 years, the defense industry has come to subsume a lot of other industries. We look at a company like BlackRock that has stock in almost every major company in the world, which is a defense contractor. But not only that, you think of a company like Halliburton. Do we think of Halliburton as a defense contractor, or do we think of them as something else, some kind of hybrid? Because what they're doing is we're we're going in, we're knocking things down. So maybe the knocking things down has become more efficient, right? Because when you think of pre Desert Storm warfare, we're thinking about a lot more investment in conventional warfare techniques. We're thinking of things that are broader, cheaper, less precise, less specific. We build less weapons that are more powerful and more precise now. So potentially that could be part of it. But I think that if you're not also thinking about the probably trillions of dollars that gets fed into rebuilding countries through defense contracts, as we've gone and destroyed these countries, or as we're going and we're destabilizing places through economic warfare, through political war, like the military industrial complex is a function of production maybe has reduced, but we had a 20-year war in Iraq where trillions of dollars got spent, and like not a lot. I bet you the vast majority of that money wasn't spent on munitions.
So I mean, the broad perspective is that like, we ramped up our military during World War One and World War Two,
Sure.
particularly World War Two.
Right.
And then look at this, like it ramp there's a little spike every time we go to war with anybody,
Right.
it spikes up, but the trend of a percentage of our GDP is down, 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 down. And Ryan McBeth spells out like this should not be like I literally did not know this. I thought it was always going up and up and up and up. I literally thought that until I saw Ryan McBeth's content. And you just are never told this. And he maybe I can have let him say it into his own words, but he like lays it out that there was a meeting after the
Oh
Gulf
yeah.
War where he's kind of like, guys, we don't need this thing anymore. And already like we have way fewer ships patrolling the oceans than we used to. This is
Sure.
maybe bad because it means that this is a Peter Zion point, but like the only reason we have global trade, the only reason Japan can trade with Germany or Australia can trade with China is because of the US military, because pirates no longer exist, like, period.
Right.
And that's because of us. The second we step back from that, the whole entire globalization system breaks down. So, like, be careful what you wish for is part of the caveat here. I'm slightly kind of arguing for Ryan McBeth here, or his general perspective.
Well,
But
I
this
think
chart does a lot of work for me. This chart goes
well,
goes hard to
we
show
do.
that like we're
Yeah, but
lied
we
to from the big industrial from the Bernie Sanders leftist wing that like the military industrial complex owns us and owns all of Congress. Like kind of there's something very false about that. Just look
I
at
don't
some of the
know.
charts.
I mean, is it? Can we really look at a single metric as a? Can we
No,
really
for
look at
sure.
a
No, 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 no.
as,
But
yeah
I'm just saying,
as a metric of
this
anything?
is a big
Also,
point. Yeah.
also like the other thing about that specific metric is it's a relational metric, and so
Yes.
there's a lot of other
And
things that can
GDP
be
is
happening there.
growing and yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the question that immediately comes to me from a statistical point of view is we're talking about contextualizing defense spending in the overall scope of GDP. Well, it's also possible that we've just become a lot more productive, right?
Mhm.
Like that our overall GDP has increased in sectors that are not defense related. And that, I'm sure that if you look at what I'd be interested in is the amount of money spent adjusted for inflation in comparison to the original data point there. Because I think if we start building a map where we've got less relational dynamics and more kind of, I think you need a couple more data points to start drawing conclusions.
Okay, here's one, Devin. Here's one. I pulled this up too. Military versus non-military spending. So if we look at the blue line here, it's a little small, but this is military spending. And then this is non-military discretionary spending, the orange line. And so the orange line, you would kind of low-key think, this is just me, my gut. I would low-key think, oh, but by the way, the chart goes from 1976 to 2015.
Sure.
Um, I would low key think that discretionary non-military spending should be above military spending because there's a lot of shit that America does that
One would
requires
imagine.
discretionary spending, like cancer research. You know what I mean? I would kind of want these charts to be flipped, but it's kind of interesting to look at this
I
as
just think
well.
that's what happens, right? Is when you're so sure that you know something, you have confirmation bias. Like that's I think maybe that sense of surety is my canary in the coal mine for confirmation bias.
Mhm.
Because it's like if you have a philosophy, there's you can always find a data point that's going to help you reinforce your kind of philosophical argument about something. But I mean, I think if you, again, something that's as multifactorial as like the United States military presence in the world and how it either adds or subtracts from our ability to live as American citizens, to be reductionist enough to put it down to a single data point is just foolish. It's
Okay, I
just
want to do this. I want to spend a couple of minutes to actually listen to Ryan McBeth because he's got like a 20-minute video.
let's do
Let's hear him make the
let,
case. Let's
let's
hear
hear
him
this
out a little bit
chill
more.
guy.
Yeah.
Let's hear
I'm
this very
jumping
chill guy
in.
state his
I-
case.
I'm jumping into minute 9 on
Operation.
this. I think this is a good place to jump in, but there is a lot of good content that happens in the first 9 minutes. Maybe folks can just go back and listen to that on their own. But I'm gonna jump in here. I think this is a good place to jump in. So here we go.
Operation Desert Storm was the high water mark of American military power. We had nobody left to fight. America entered 1990 with 28 combat divisions spread across the active duty Army, National Guard, and reserves. By the year 2000, that number had shrunk to 10 active duty combat divisions, 8 National Guard combat divisions, and no reserve combat divisions. In 1990, the Air Force had 134 fighter squadrons. The reserves had 12, the National Guard had 45. Today, the Air Force has 48 fighter squadrons, the reserves operate 8, and the National Guard operates 25. In 1990, the U.S. Navy had 546 ships. Today, they have 239. And a lot of that is due to BRAC. The BRAC, or Base Realignment and Closure process, was initiated to address the issue of excess military bases and facilities as the Cold War was kind of winding down. The goal of BRAC was to increase the efficiency of the military by closing unnecessary installations and realigning others to better support defense needs. BRAC started closing bases with multiple rounds in 1988, 1991, 1993, 1995, and 2005. Remember that TV show House of Cards before things got weird? One major plot point of that show was that the main character, Frank Underwood, was demanding a congressman vote to close a shipyard in that congressman's home city of Philadelphia. That was kind of a BRAC-like commission.
What are we going to do about the shipyard?
BRAC had their hearing. They slated it for closing.
And the Philadelphia shipyard really was closed in a round of BRAC cuts, although it was back in 1991. In fact, 1991 saw the closing of multiple air bases, naval yards, and Army installations, which kind of leads you to wonder, if the military-industrial complex is so vast and has congressmen pulling strings to funnel money directly from the government into defense, why the hell are we trying to be more efficient? If the military-industrial complex just existed to make the military bigger and buy more weapons and systems that we didn't need, what the heck was BRAC? From 1991 to 1998, the defense budget dropped by more than 15%. And right in the middle of those two dates was a dinner. On July 21st, 1993, a dinner was organized by then Secretary of Defense Les Aspin. The dinner was held at the Pentagon and included the top 15 or so major defense contractors. After the meal, the executives were shunted into a smaller private room with a slide projector. And the graph that was projected on the screen was not something they wanted to see. The chart showed how many companies in various categories of military equipment existed currently and how many companies the Defense Department was going to be able to afford to keep in business. This meeting became known as the Last Supper. And it was on that day that the military-industrial complex, at least as Eisenhower knew it, died. July 21st, 1993. What came next was the Great Merger. Lockheed Corporation merged with Martin Marietta in 1995 to form Lockheed Martin, becoming one of the largest defense contractors globally. Northrop Corporation merged with Grumman Corporation in 1994 to create Northrop Grumman, another major player in the defense sector. Boeing acquired McDonnell Douglas in 1997, significantly expanding Boeing's defense and aerospace capabilities. Raytheon acquired the defense electronics and missile business of Hughes Aircraft in 1997, strengthening its position in the defense industry. General Dynamics purchased Bath Iron Works, which further consolidated its shipbuilding capabilities. Smaller defense companies were swallowed up until there were basically only 5 remaining. Now, this list leaves out the smaller players and subcontractors. After all, the lie about the military-industrial complex is very useful as a get-out-of-consequences-free card when one of those countries wants to do something bad. Russia invades Ukraine, you can't oppose them because that's what the military-industrial complex wants. Who cares if Procter & Gamble, a company that sells toothpaste and detergent, makes more money than all the major defense companies combined? You're the one being fooled. The military-industrial complex is a lie that our adversaries perpetuate to convince you that they should be allowed to invade whomever they want without consequences.
I just want, again, like the reduction, like maybe he's got a deeper and deeper and deeper point, but it just keeps being about money. And like there just is way more dimensions to power than money, than the dollar amount spent. The nickels and dimes that we pay to Lockheed Martin, I don't think would be completely representative of the amount of stature, power, influence that the defense industry has in this country. Because if the defense industry can influence us enough to get us into one war, that's all that needs to happen, right? It's not like it needs to continuously produce more. It's that we
Yeah.
cyclically need to
This
get
is
into
actually one
conflict.
thing that I wanna talk about, is yeah, 'cause let's drill in on this a little bit, 'cause
Yeah,
this is a good point, because this is something that, like, Dave Smith and a lot of these commentators will say, is that we only are involved in Ukraine because of the military industrial complex, because they need to make money, and I've heard this argument since I was a child, that every time
yeah,
we
I don't
do
buy.
anything militarily, the only reason that we do it is because, 1, America bad, and 2, the defense contractors need to make money. Do you think that, like, are you that extreme on this view, or what's your take?
Oh, I don't buy that at all. I think that
Okay.
I've spent enough time around military folks and like frankly Republicans to be like a lot of the motive
Frankly.
for frankly, a lot of the motive for this stuff is just maintaining supremacy, dude. You know, it's like how much stuff people drives me nuts. I had a
Wait, so
really
that so
heated debate.
you are saying that we need to like you sound like you are saying that we are involved in Ukraine because of the military wants us to, because we need to maintain supremacy. Did I not hear that correctly?
Well, I think the Ukraine situation meant he had something to say about it that I thought was the smartest thing I've heard, which was that we've got all these expiring munitions that we're either going to
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
dispose of or put somewhere. And like to literally get paid to get somebody else to shoot them at our most bitter enemy is kind of fucking 5D chess.
As soon as I heard that too, it did change
I
my
was just like,
perspective. Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, dude, from almost every metric, it makes sense in that way, where you're like, oh, we've got all this old crap that's supposed to blow up our enemies, but we're in a peaceful time where we can't really be doing all that. But we've got these people that will literally go and launch all of our stale explosives at somebody that we don't
Yeah.
like. I'm like, this is
Win-win.
beyond brilliant. You know, this is smart no matter how you fucking cut it, man.
Mhm.
But no, I mean, I think that probably is. But yes, I mean, in that sense, right? Then it is the defense industry that is motivating the amount of money that's going over, because it's not like politicians are going, well, we've got 55 RSAMs that are only got 5 more years. No, that is Northrop Grumman, that is Lockheed, that is Boeing, that is people who are producing missiles going to Congress and saying, we have this whole stockpile of things that are going to go bad and we need to get rid of them, and
Right.
you can send them to Ukraine and we'll call that money that we, but the the thing is that those guys are going, well, you still got to pay us for it.
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
like we're just giving it to them for free. So yeah, I think inarguably a huge motivation why we're in Ukraine is through, if not for, the defense contracting industry. We don't have a fucking moral obligation to these people. We don't have a moral obligation to anybody in the world that doesn't suit some capitalist enterprise for us. Otherwise, we'd be in Sudan right now.
Yeah, I think that those are good points. I mean, we do have long history with Russia and the Soviet Union. So
True.
whenever they try to like flex on Europe, I think that we're just inherently going to have some response there. Just because all like we
Oh yeah.
want all of our allies to. I mean, everybody tell this is all true until Trump came along. But we want to be good friends with France and
Everybody.
Germany and Europe and
Yeah.
everyone we trade with, and we need their IP, they need our IP, et cetera, et cetera. Like we travel
Right.
there, we want to go to Paris and not have it like blown up by Putin. So there's a lot there, and you're totally right. And like I am very
I
cynical
love
of
that we're protecting Europe so that we have a nice place to visit. I love that worldview. I think, dude, it's funny. It's like every time I love this conversation because it always comes back to this for me, where
Mhm.
people go, well, I'm like, well, where else in the world do you get this quality of life? And they they always reference somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
And then the conversation for me always turns to defense spending, where I'm like, well, why? Hold on. Why do you think that we have this quality of life here with this many people here? Do you think it's like because we're exceptionally smart, or it's not? It's because we maintain dominance and military supremacy throughout the globe in a complete and pretty totalitarian sense. And that's why all of these places get to be peaceful. Do we remember World War II? Europe got fucking ran through. Like,
Mhm.
ran through, dude. London was a fucking rubble heap. You feel me? Like, every country in Europe was occupied or getting bombed. And it wasn't until 100,000 Americans showed up and started chewing on the Nazis that anything fucking happened. And so I'm just like, that's always been the case. That's where we're at to this day, man. None of these fucking countries have the ability to defend themselves. If China or Russia wages a ground assault on them, they're gonna get ran through. Ran
Yeah,
through.
I wanna pull up just a chart here. This to me is so interesting and depressing. Can you see this on the screen? So this is deaths in war worldwide,
Oh yeah.
globally.
Yeah, yeah.
This bump right here, maybe I can make this bigger.
World
World
War
War
One.
One.
Yeah.
This bump right here, World War Two. The last 3 years is like we're not even cracking anything above,
We'll
like our
never lose
normal peace
people
thing.
again. We'll
Yeah,
never
hopefully not. Yeah.
again. No, there's no way. There's no way. Unless it's even then, I mean, the NATO is never going. The fact that NATO exists will make sure that that little second spike never happens again. There's too many
That was
countries that have
exactly the idea. Yeah.
100%. I mean, that's
Yeah.
100% the reason why it exists, and it has been the most successful treaty in the history of human
Yeah,
civilization.
you see it. You see it in this
You're
chart. Exactly.
Yeah, so many people are safe because of it, and if anybody starts to act a fool, the weight of the world comes down on them, and that is a pretty big achievement for humankind, I'd say.
Yeah, you know what's so funny about this chart? Not funny, but I mean, like, so interesting about this chart that's understated is that while we have maintained this basic level of like a sub-million deaths per war since World War II, the population globally has just exploded. I
Exploded.
mean, we were maybe at a couple of billion people back in World War II days. We're creeping up on like 8 billion. Maybe we
Yeah.
hit 8 billion, right? We're creeping up on 10
Yeah.
billion right now. And still like fewer and fewer deaths per
Yeah.
year. I mean, this is an impressive chart. And I think that you're right that like NATO was a massive part of it. And I don't know, like this
Yeah,
is good
also,
news. This is good news.
I hate being this American, but, like, you know why we've had 70 years of peace? Because daddy's home. Like, because nobody's acting up when dad's fucking home, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just like nobody's gonna get that far out of place. And you see what fucking happens, man. People test little parts of us all the time. People are always probing in, they're always trying to scratch a little bit and see if it smells weird. They're probing our
Mhm.
allies, they're probing our alliances. Like, we're being probed all day, every day to make sure that we're still strong enough to resist a some level of incursion. And like the answer is fuck yeah, bitch. You know what I mean? Like, give it a shot. See how it goes.
Ah. Hey, well, I've got to wrap it up there, but
Me
this has been a fun exploration of Ryan McBeth. I actually maybe want to do a follow-up segment sometime about the
me too.
military-industrial complex because I feel like I have right now, as of this moment, kind of come away from this thinking that like I need to know more about this before I can say too much more because I do
Yeah,
feel like I'm hearing Ryan McBeth and be like, I never thought
me
about that
too.
before. never thought
Same,
about that before. What else am
same.
I not thinking about? Like, what's the
Yeah, I
parallel
mean,
to this I'm not thinking about? Right.
we should do it. We should also just do like a full Ryan McBeth episode because he just says so many things that we could do a half an hour on.
I would like to hear his takes on Ukraine, on the Middle East, and like
Yes,
discuss them. Yeah, I think that
TikTok as a
that would be fun.
weapons system.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a
There's
lot
a
there.
lot.
It's very good. This is the one that just like absolutely jumped out at me as like, no, this is my whole life. I've never heard anyone say there is no military industrial complex
Oh,
ever.
it's
And
such
like
like common sense or
I'm
something,
not
right?
even gonna say, I'm not even right now in this moment, I'm not even gonna say like, I'm not gonna walk around saying there is no military industrial complex. I'm not comfortable with that position yet. But like I love it that he's out there presenting this view. I love it. And it
Same.
makes me want to think about this more. And
I
yeah.
like the guy. I love how knowledgeable he is. I'm a fan. I'll be listening to his stuff more just because I had a couple gripes with like wanting to know more about it. I really, really like this guy's attitude and his
Mhm.
knowledgeableness. I'm a fan.
Okay, so what do you say? Shirt or no shirt?
Oh my god.
Because here's what
I
I'm
would,
saying, Dan.
I,
Here's what I'm we get the Russell brand amulet. I almost said a Russian brand. We get the Russell brand amulet, and we get the live, laugh, launch shirt. We wear them in parallel, and then I think that's a flex, man. That's a
we
flex.
need like a goal like 100 more like when we can monetize the channel. I promise with our first $400 of monetized money
Find the amulet, baby. Find the
we'll buy an
amulet.
amulet and a live laugh launch shirt.
Maybe we also at that time, maybe that's when we launch our startup to get our own magical amulet that protects you from disinformation and
Oh,
scams.
oh
Camera
yes, dude. The
that pops up
millennial
with the Russell
protection
brand's voice.
amulet.
Yep.
It's
Hey,
the PD, the millennial protection device.
this is good. Cool, man. All right. Hey, till next time.